Hey guys, so this is episode 1.8 Mirroring, which is episode 9 of Mr. Robot recap. But before I get into the recap, Iggy Azalea shirt, Iggy Eggs, and then jewelry of the day. You can watch those reviews. But what I wanted to say is next week's recap will be late. How late, I don't know. I want to say if it doesn't go up Friday, it may go up Saturday, even Sunday, so it could be on a 3 to 4 day delay. Don't even know about this video. Also, only because the Wi-Fi has been acting weird since we had that little storm and it got knocked out. But mostly next week is going to be really late because, exciting news, I don't know if any of y'all saw, but the Austin, Texas Festival at the Alamo Drafthouse in Austin, Texas, they will be airing the Mr. Robot finale. And I got tickets to go to it and stuff, so that's why it's going to be late. You know, I can't take my notes and stuff inside the theater and stuff because that theater is like zero tolerance, like no phone, no talking, or they will kick you out. So, you know, I can't take my notes and anything while I'm watching the movie and stuff. I mean, I can only talk to other fans and stuff, and I'm just hoping that the actors will be there so maybe I can meet Rami Malek. But, next week's recap is going to be late. Sorry. And before I kind of also get into it, I want to give a shout out to Senseless Eater here on YouTube who commented on my previous recaps, and he's been really supportive of me in a way, saying like how I do a really great job on recapping the show and everything like that, and we kind of have like our little like exchanges about like what we think about the show and like our little like references and stuff. And like I know he has some about Pink Floyd and like the Fight Club-esque part, and I told him how I thought like how Elliot lives halfway between fantasy and reality, like Lady Gaga mentioned on her Born This Way album cover. And then also, like Lana Del Rey, when they were at the boardwalk, Mr. Robot and Elliot, like her song High by the Beach, like if anything, Elliot did not want to be like at the boardwalk talking like about his dad, which Mr. Robot is his dad, but then in this episode it's a little bit like, okay, whoa, whoa, whoa. So like the only thing Elliot wanted to be was High by the Beach, you know, and that way, like if you listen to the lyrics of even the songs I'll tell you about in this recap and stuff, because I relate most things to music, and you kind of put it into context with the show, I think maybe Mr. Robot will make some sense to you guys, and that's why I'm here, because I wanted help, and I thought if I could figure some things out and stuff like that, like, it would be good. And then also, happy, I guess, belated birthday to Christian Slater, because, like I said, I don't know on what kind of a delay this video is going to be on, but I know next week's recap is going to be on a really big delay, only because, like, first of all, it's the season finale, and this one, I took, like, 2 pages of notes on, like, 2.5 pages, and then I know next week, like, when I go to the theater and I watch the the finale, and then I don't recap it because I'm not home, and then I gotta drive back home, and then watch the episode again, probably the day after, so on Thursday I'll probably, like, rewatch it again and take my notes and stuff, and it sucks because I won't be live tweeting with the Who is Mr. Robot Twitter, so that's gonna be a little bit hard to do, but I'm gonna have fun. I will get the finale recap because next week's episode seems really, like, revolutionary and stuff like that, so it seems really cool and stuff, and I don't know, I'm kind of excited and, like, upset that it's already ending, because I felt like, and then also what I noticed, it's like they say, oh, in, like, 3 months and stuff, and, like, this episode, I'm like, wow, it really has kind of been, like, 3 months, you know, like, June, July, August, you know, like, all summer and stuff, but nonetheless, let's get into this recap, and I have my Twitter along here. If you don't follow me, I'm at Gaga's Little Pedro. I'll probably throw it in here, because sometimes I tweet along with the show and stuff, and some of my like ideas and theories about the show, like, and I throw in a little bit of commentary and stuff like that. So if you don't follow me, you can follow me there and stuff. And I'll just start with the tweet that Mr. Robot started. And once again, this is 1.8 Mirroring, and this is episode 9 of Who is Mr. Robot. And I think the title Mirroring kind of like mirrors Elliot and Mr. Robot, who is his dad, and stuff like that. And we'll get more into that later as I recap the episode. But Mr. Robot had tweeted, answers mean nothing if we don't act on them, and like the plan goes forward and stuff like that. And then Sam Esmail, the creator of the show, said he reiterated his no spoiler clause for tonight, especially tonight, which was this new episode. And then he just said, like, record and watch ASAP and stuff, and I told him I was excited because you're beyond genius and stuff. And then Portia Doubleday, who plays Angela's like, it's happening and stuff and like that. And then I said that I could feel the major twist building up on the show when I was starting, because I said, if you're not watching the show, how will you wake up? Because I've mentioned this before, I'm pretty sure in one of the recaps, or maybe all of them, in a sense, that this show kind of, it truly does mirror or reflect our society today and stuff nowadays, and it's really, like, eye-opening and stuff. Like, you really see, like, what the 1%, like, does and how they manipulate, like, how invisible hands are in the world and how our privacy has been hacked and stuff like that. And I know there is that thing about like the cheating website, like accounts got leaked and stuff, but that's just crazy. And it's kind of scary to think about like everything that's happening, like how technological we are and stuff like that. But I don't know. And then Mr. Robot tweeted me back that saying, those who sleep on the answers being provided will be left behind. So, let's get into it. So, let me spit out my gum, like they say. The episode starts off, you know, as always, like kind of showing little bits and scenes of the previous episode and everything like that. And it was Mr. Robot on the train in the first episode where he's like, it's an exciting time, and it's an exciting time to be alive and stuff. And now, as we know, Mr. Robot is Elliot's dad and everything like that. But, like, this is how long it was, like, this episode. These are all the notes I took. And then Colby and Angela when they're talking and stuff, and then the honeypot, Gideon and Tyrell talking about it and stuff, and Tyrell being like, oh, like, I want these files sent to me and everything like that. Tyrell strangling that how the detectives, and they showed up at Tyrell's house and stuff, and then when his Russian bride hoe broke her water with that fork, like, how crazy was that? Like, she basically stabbed herself in the vagina or something. I mean, obviously not her vagina, but, like, you know, in the uterus and stuff. But I'm just like, oh my god, like, that lady is just, she's crazy. And I know I mentioned Lana Del Rey's Money, Power, Glory, because it's like, you kind of think, like, that's what she's going for with Tyrell, but in a way, it's like, it's not what she wants at all. And, like, I don't know, like, it's weird. And then when Mr. Robot was like, tell me about your father, when they were at the boardwalk. Like I said, the High by the Beach, Lana Del Rey. Link. And then I was kind of like, is this sort of a foreshadowing for the window? Because if you don't remember, Elliot mentioned how he was pushed out of a window at 8 years old because he thought, or the dad thought he deserved it, but in this episode it's kind of a twist. And how he broke his arm and stuff, and then he got pushed off again in this episode. So, not on the boardwalk, but something. And it was just like, in my mind, I'm kind of like wondering, I'm like, is this self-inflicted? Is this something? Because, you know, it's this show with the twist that it has, like, you just, honestly, you never really know what's coming. Like, I have really good theories and hypotheses and stuff like that about the episode, and some of them are a little bit true and everything like that, and some of them are spot on, but then again, I'm just like, you always kind of like, huh, like, you just never know. And then the kiss with Darlene, and then, like, I'm your sister, and then when Mr. Robot comes in and, like, he finds out he's his dad, and, like, we need to talk and stuff like that. So it's kind of very weird. So in that sense, it's just, this episode is going to be one big, like, crazy thing. So the episode first starts off, and we're in a store, and it's Mr. Robot's store. And it's kind of funny because it's a self-titled store and stuff like that, so, you know, it's kind of like, I guess, the Geek Squad at Best Buy being called the Geek Squad or something like that, you know, like if they had their own store or whatever. And some guy walks in saying that your son stole from me, and he's kind of like, I had 320s, and I know I gave you 2, and your son was standing behind me, and his son is referring to Elliot. And he's like, I know he took it and stuff like that, and blah, 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 and like, give me my money back and everything like that. And then he's like, I know you'll do the right thing. And it's funny because Mr. Robot tweeted, insults, accusations, threats, money brings out the worst in people. The system must be shut down before it grows worse. And that's obviously true because, like they say, money is the root of all evil. Money makes people talk and stuff like that. I mean, look at the interview of the rich kids of Beverly Hills on Bethany and stuff like that, her talk show, and you'll see how people got really heated because they're like, oh, like, why do these rich kids have all this money and they're just spending it when people have their problems and stuff. But then it's like, sometimes people are born into money, but then I guess in, like, the Mr. Robot case, it's, like, Evil Corp and their money and stuff like that. So it's kind of just very, I guess, double-edged sword, double standard in a way, you know. It's just, it's weird in that sense. So he tells them, I know you'll do the right thing, which is basically, like, you'll give me my money back or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then Mr. Robot says no. And then I kind of thought to myself, I'm like, is that doing the right thing? Like, what most people would do or most people would want you not to do? Because it's like, if you stole money and they said do the right thing, obviously you would turn it over just to feel good about yourself. But in this situation, kind of like, I guess, how Evil Corp, like, let's say, steals money from people and stuff like that, and they said do the right thing, give them back the stolen money that you stole from Evil Corp. It's like, if it's already stolen and you stole it, like, why would you give it back? Why would you give something that's stolen back to who you stole it from? In a way, it's kind of like reminding me of Joan Rivers and Annie Duke on Celebrity Apprentice when she mentioned how poker players are like bad people and stuff, and they give money with blood on it. You know, that's kind of like the money that Evil Corp has, and everything like that. And then he tells him, like, you teach him how to steal and stuff like that. Is like, you're a bad father and everything like that. And then it's just like he just kind of goes after him, and that goes into the accusations and everything like that. And then he kind of, like, I guess goes for a low blow in a way, and he's like, you're doing things that my retarded nephew can do and stuff like that. And then he basically, like, I don't know, just really, like, digs deep at Mr. Robot, and Mr. Robot's just, like, reading the newspaper and stuff like that, and he's like, well, I'm gonna need to ask you to leave and stuff, basically. So that was also kind of foreshadowing when someone asked someone else to leave. And it was just, he was going after him in a way and stuff like that. And then they also said morality does not dictate what we're willing to do for those we care about, in a way. So it's kind of just thinking, because, like, that guy, like, was going in on Elliot and stuff like that, but then Mr. Robot, being Elliot's dad, kind of, like, had his morals straight in the sense of, like, I'm not going to give back this person's money, because when he calls Elliot out and stuff, and he's like, I didn't do it, and then Robot's like, show me the money, basically, and stuff like that. And then he kind of just keeps the money, like you think in the beginning, but then there's like a little thing, yeah, they're looking, I guess, at movie times or something like that, like how you used to. Sometimes I do look at movie times in the newspaper if they pop up sometimes, and they see Pulp Fiction, and I've never seen Pulp Fiction, but I know there's been Pulp Fiction references in, like, social media or stuff like that, so I haven't seen the movie, but if you know, like, a reference from Pulp Fiction that you can relate to this part of Mr. Robot, then please tell me, or leave it in the comments below, because I've never seen it, but I know people love to make a lot of references to it and stuff like that. And he kind of has the money for that, like, he says, okay, like, we'll basically go see a movie with the money you spent, because he's like, this should cover the both of us and stuff like that. And he's like, go get your jacket and stuff, and then Mr. Robot starts coughing, and at first I'm like, is this, like, signs of the leukemia and stuff, because, I mean, obviously, we kind of don't know Elliot's age in this particular scene. I mean, you can just assume that he's 8 years old in this scene. But, I mean, maybe he's 7, maybe he's 6, you know, like, you don't know, like, exactly how old he is. And, I don't know, I was thinking, because, like, in another scene, like, he was smoking, so I'm like, I was like, leukemia or this, and then that comes back at the end of the episode, and stuff like that. And then he's like, you're not in trouble. He's like, because you're a good kid, even though what you did was wrong. So it's kind of like, I guess, what's that one fictional character who steals from the rich and gives to the poor? I want to say Peter Pan, but I know it's not Peter Pan. I want to say it's Robin Hood. So he kind of did like a Robin Hood move, and that's kind of like what they're doing by stealing from Evil Corp and stuff like that. And he's kind of like, even though you did steal, which is, I guess, morally wrong and stuff like that, he's like, you're still a good kid, like, you're innocent. And this kind of comes into another scene, because it's like, I guess, the innocence of a child and stuff like that, but then at the same time, he was kind of being conditioned in that sense. It's like, it's not wrong, it's not bad if, like, your intentions are pure, but then it's like, but it's still wrong. So it's like, I guess I want to say a paradox, if that's the right word, in some way. Because it's like, the guy was a prick, so, like, let's say, like, the guy was rich and stuff, like, he has enough money, like, $20, like, what's that to him and stuff like that. And then I thought, I was like, is this kind of like an eye for an eye and stuff like that? But I'm like, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard that, you know, and I'm just kind of like, oh, you never know and stuff like that, like, who knows what he's doing. And then, like, zooms out when they leave to the movie theater, and, like, you see it's the store, Mr. Robot, like, the store. And then it becomes a dry cleaners, and then a flower shop, and then a tattoo parlor, and then it becomes the bank of Evil Corp. And I thought that was kind of like maybe that's where it came from, you know, kind of like the dry cleaners and stuff. Like, I just thought, like, maybe, like, the clothing you'd wear to a funeral and stuff like that, you know, like the tux, and then the flower shop, like the flowers you'd leave at a funeral and stuff like that, because Mr. Robot was dead, but he's not, but you never know. And the tattoo, I couldn't really think much about the tattoo, except for, like, White Rose, I guess, previously being, like, death or something. And then the Bank of Evil Corp, I felt like that's kind of, like, I guess, the last straw for Elliot, because it's like, oh, like, you killed my dad, and then you kind of, like, take the place where I was with my dad when I was smaller. And I guess that kind of affected him in the sense of where Mr. Robot used to be, Evil Corp took over. So it's like, not only did they, like, take his dad, they took his dad's legacy. And I kind of relate that to Fashion Police with Joan Rivers, being on there, and then Kathy Griffin coming and then kind of like just saving her own butt and just taking it out. And even you can watch that interview with Melissa Rivers where she says like how Kathy Griffin basically just shit on my mother's career, referencing Joan Rivers and stuff like that. So I was kind of like, who, when I was seeing that. So I don't know about that scene, but that was a little bit like odd, but then to me it kind of made sense in that way. I kept stopping and stuff because you know how I keep moving and stuff because my leg falls asleep. Well, I found something to sit on and I just hope it doesn't break, but let's get back into this. So, basically it comes back to Elliot and Mr. Robot, and they're both standing at each other in the apartment stuff, and then Elliot is kind of like talking to us in a way, like talking to himself, saying, it's really him. And then he says out loud, like, it's really you. And stuff, and then this is the part that I said when Mr. Robot is smoking a cigarette, and like I was like, was that to the cough that he was having when he was like a little kid? Because I said maybe it's like not only like the leukemia that killed him. I mean, maybe the cigarettes played a part in it. You know, like a lung cancer in a way. You know, but you never know. And then I kind of thought because Colby kind of mentioned cigarettes at the end of this episode near, so I was kind of like trying to put two and two together. Maybe that's why Colby is involved, and maybe this and that. You know. I say everything's a web and everything kind of comes back to Elliot and stuff like that. And then he kind of talks about how Elliot's apartment was messy and stuff, and it kind of goes back into the childhood because he's like, well, it's like it makes no surprise because you weren't a fan of cleaning up your room when you were small also. So also I guess like verifies the fact that he's his father and stuff like that. And then he's like, I kind of wondered like how long it take for you to like notice like who I really was and stuff like that. He's like, notice that Mr. Robot is your dad, you know, and like notice that Darlene's your sister and stuff like that. He's like, because it took you like a while and stuff like that and everything like that. And then he's like, I was wondering how long it was just going to take for you to realize who we really were and stuff like that, because I guess they're playing a game with him in a way, but not really, but who knows. And then Elliot kind of like yells at him. He's kind of like, why didn't you tell me and stuff like that. And then Mr. Robot's telling him that he's like, I tried to handle it gently and stuff, and he's like, the last 3 months, and this is where I mentioned the 3 months being like all of summer in a way, and he's like, the last 3 months and stuff like that, it's like, was that gentle and everything like that? And then he's like, no, he's like, but it's something important, and it still has to be and stuff like that, and it's still kind of like reinforcing that what their plan is still important. And then he kind of gets mad because he's kind of like, you want me to put this on hold in the sense of like, you being my father, you want me to like brush that off and just go back to focusing on like our little revolution plan and stuff like that. And it's kind of like, I guess, a slap in Elliot's face. It's like, how can you expect me to like also us, like the viewers, like be like, how can we just forget about that when you just popped up out of nowhere, like they say. And then he's kind of like, but you're dead and stuff like that. And I guess that kind of foreshadows like the white rose and stuff like that, or alludes to it, but it foreshadows like why he's in the cemetery later on in this episode and stuff like that. And then he's like, you need to lower your voice and stuff, like, and everything like that, because he's like yelling at his own dad, and he's like, well, this is perfect and stuff like that. He's like, for all the things that have happened and everything like that, he's like, I think this is like the perfect tone of voice and everything like that. And then he's like, don't seem crazy and everything like that, because he says that there are people outside and everything like that, and like, when he tells him to lower his voice, I guess, kind of because like he's talking to himself at the end of this episode when you really figure this out. It's kind of like, maybe that's why, like, it was kind of like, I guess, his inner self telling him, like, don't yell out loud and stuff like that, because you're gonna seem crazy just, I guess, yelling to yourself in a way. And then I was kind of wondering, I was like, is Tyrell Mr. Robot in that sense? Or, like, is Tyrell Elliot? Or, like, is the meeting that Tyrell and Mr. Robot had fake? Or was that, like, something that had happened before or something, but then it wouldn't make sense because Elliot and Tyrell are the same age and everything like that. So it's just odd trying to put like some parts together, but I'm like, maybe Tyrell and Elliot had already met, you know, like before all that, like when Mr. Robot met him and stuff like that. So you never know. And then he's like, there are some people, like I said, who don't want us together and stuff. And then he's like, is that why they've been following me and everything like that? And then he's like, you've been like being, you know, like just controlled or something like all along and stuff. And then he's like, by who, you know, like it's crazy and stuff like that. And then he's like, Mr. Robot tells him, by people who don't want me alive. And now this kind of makes me think, people who don't want me alive. And I thought, if Mr. Robot's dead, would they not want the memory alive in Elliot? Or if he really is alive, why do they want him dead? You know, like it's kind of like thinking, or like maybe they want Elliot dead because Elliot is like the key to this huge plan and everything like that. So it's kind of making you think like, who's real, what's real, who plays a part in what, and stuff like that. And it's just odd, like I guess the wording and stuff like that, and the way they deliver the message. And then he's like, it's not safe to discuss it here and stuff like that. And then Elliot's like, well, tell me what's going on and everything. And he's like, okay, let's go. And then he's kind of like, let's go, you know. And it's like, stop and stuff. And then he's like, if you want answers, he's like, you need to follow me for for answers. He's like, stop the questions, follow me for answers and everything like that. And then I thought, in my way, like, if you ever, like, look into, like, those Illuminati videos, like, that you stumble across upon, especially when you look up, like, Lady Gaga and stuff, I was thinking, I was like, is this, like, a mental breakdown? Is this, like, mind programming? And, like, is his handler Tyrell? Is his handler, like, those people who don't want Mr. Robot alive and stuff? I don't know. I'm looking for my pen. Oh, my first pen ran out of ink, so, you know, that's just how many notes I've been taking on this show. And I was just wondering, I was just like, is this, like, a mental breakdown? Is he, like, split personality disorder and stuff like that? And I'm just thinking of, like, what is leading him to, like, I guess, have all these memories just flooding back to him and stuff like that. And, like, who kind of conditioned him, who's programming his mind and stuff like that, and who's, like, his handler in that sense and stuff like that. And then I even tweeted, I was like, if you listen to Lana Del Rey's song Big Eyes for the movie Big Eyes, and if you know the story about Margaret Keane and her husband and the paintings and stuff like that, you can kind of put that into context with this. And then I was like, with Elliot's big eyes and Mr. Robot's big lies, I'm like, is Elliot crazy? I'm like, is Elliot truly crazy, or are they just making him believe he's crazy? And then Mr. Robot was saying, we're taught to ask questions, but it's only when we pause to listen that the answers truly arrive. And that kind of led to the part when, it's funny, when Mr. Robot told Elliot, like, follow me for answers, like, stop the questions and stuff like that, and he's kind of like, okay. And I was just like, this is just odd, the way, like, things are said. And then we go to Gideon with his boyfriend and stuff. He's leaving for work in the morning, and then he's like, let's talk and stuff. He's like, breathe, have breakfast with me, like, you haven't talked about anything and stuff like that. And then he's like, how do you want me to talk about anything? Like, it's all over the news, like, we were hacked and stuff. And he's like, we're a cybersecurity company, so it's like, it's bad, like, it's a bad rep, it's a bad image for the company, that, like, a cybersecurity company that's supposed to be, like, helping other people, clients, companies from not being hacked and stuff is being hacked. So it's kind of making it look bad on Gideon's part in a way. So he's kind of, like, I guess, overwhelmed with that in a way. So he also says, he's like, maybe we already fell and I'm just trying to grasp onto something and everything. And then he's like, I'm a failure. And then his boyfriend says, look at me. He's like, I'd die happy because of you. Like, just to be here with you and stuff like that. He's like, failure doesn't look like this. And he's kind of basically saying, like, look at where we are right now. Like, feel this moment, Pitbull. And just realize that you're not a failure, because it's like, you still have me in a way. And that's kind of a cute scene in a way. And Mr. Robot even tweeted, saying, everyone has different definitions of success and failure, and there is no correct answer, only opinions that we place upon ourselves. Because Gideon was thinking, like, oh, well, we are a cybersecurity company, we are hacked, we've been hacked, we're getting hacked, so it makes it look bad. And then, like, because he's in that position, it makes me look bad, like, I'm a failure because the company is a failure, and the company's gonna think I'm a failure because I did fail and stuff. But it's only, he's thinking too much into himself and stuff like that. So it's just weird. So that scene was, like, kind of, I guess, a heartfelt scene in a way. I was facing the camera, but then I stopped it, so this video is such a huge mess. But then we go to the lawyer working on the case back at her little office and stuff like that, and Angela walks in, she's like, oh, hey, and stuff, and she's like, oh, the Colby confession news was gonna break and stuff like that. And Angela, she's there because she's like, I want to help and stuff. And then she's like, aren't you supposed to be at work, you know, like, why are you here, like, during work hours, I guess? And she's like, oh, because I quit and stuff like that. And then she's like, I gave up everything and stuff. And then Laura's like, okay. She's like, but I don't want you here, like, you're not gonna work with me here, like, it's not gonna work out, like they said. And then she also tells her, like, I'm not here to help you find a purpose in your life. And it's kind of funny in a way, because I guess she's like, oh, maybe if I work with the people who are, like, helping me, like, and my mother who died, like, then I have a purpose in life, you know, to help others and stuff, which was kind of foreshadowed on the, like, the previous episodes and stuff, and then it's like, maybe it's not where she belongs, it's not really what she's looking for in that way, and stuff like that. And then Angela also mentions how she can't work in tech anymore because of what she did at Allsafe and stuff, and how she's gonna basically confess and stuff like that, testify and whatever. So I guess she kind of like tied the rope around her own neck in that sense. And then she's like, I'm broke and stuff, and she's like, the lawsuit money isn't gonna come in for years and everything like that. And that's, the lawyer's also like, that's why you need something to just, you need to get something, like whatever you can get, or like whatever you can find and stuff, and whatever. And then she's like, that's, you can't work here because that's not the level for what we're doing and stuff like that. And then she gets a phone call, and then she's just like, hold on and stuff, and then Angela leaves and stuff. And then it goes to, I'm having to check this off because there's so many notes that I took on this episode. And Angela getting a phone call from Darlene and stuff like that. And then she says that she looked at work and Elliot's not there and he's flipping out again and everything like that. So we're assuming like this happened before, you know, like this mental breakdown and stuff with Darlene, and maybe Mr. Robot in the past has happened before or whatever with Angela and Darlene, because also remember they're doing ballet and I was kind of like, I don't really remember them being friends and stuff like that. So it's just, I guess, a family affair in some way. She mentions how Elliot tried to kiss her and stuff, and then she's like, you're the one who found him last time, like, I need you this time to, like, find, and then she's like, I need your help, and then they kind of meet at a museum and stuff, and I feel like this is a museum, I'm not sure. And the reason they go there is because Angela's kind of like, this is where we would always, like, meet up if we ever did, like, a runaway or something like that, you know, in a sense. And then she's like, I can't help and stuff, and then she's like, I don't know him anymore, and Darlene is kind of, like, confused by it. And then she's like, I can't talk to Elliot because every time I talk to him, he only answers back with, like, lies, you know, and it's like how in the previous episode where she's like, I don't even know you, like, you have your walls built up so much and stuff like that. So it's kind of like she can't get through, so what's the point of even finding him and stuff like that. And Darlene's kind of like, still like, what? And then she even says that we can't protect him from himself all the time. And that's when Darlene answers, like, he's saved us so many times, and you know how Elliot says how he hacks people, but he helps people and stuff, and he, like, protects people, and I even told Angela, why didn't you tell me about this? I could have protected you, but Elliot was never there, so that was kind of weird. He's like, he saved us so many times, and like, basically saying, like, you're gonna check out on Elliot, like, just this one time. And then she kind of tells her, like, why do you care, you know? Angela questions Darlene by saying, what are your intentions, I guess, to simplify it. And she's like, you guys weren't that close growing up and stuff like that. And she mentions how he had been fine until she came back to the city and stuff. And she's like, why have you been spending so much time together and stuff? And then Darlene kind of, like, dodges that question in a way. And then she's kind of like, okay, she's like, don't tell me the truth, like, fine, whatever, you know. But she's like, stop asking for my help, basically. Like, it's like that one Oprah meme. So it's like, so what is the truth, you know? And then Mr. Robot had even tweeted saying, like, we think we know people until it becomes time to help them. Only then do we realize how little information we often possess. And that's when she kind of questioned, like, why do I need to help you? Why are you asking for my help? And she's like, she doesn't really know why Darlene is asking for help, you know? Like, it just doesn't make sense to her in that way. And then we go to Elliot and Mr. Robot at a train station and stuff, and they're kind of having, like, a little talk and everything like that, and then it's funny because he mentioned, like, he would play this game, Elliot, of, like, the statistical probability of each car on train based on their derailment and stuff, and which one was the safest car to ride into the city on the train, because he would always look forward to, like, the trips to the city with his dad and stuff, and then he's like, on the way back, he would choose the most dangerous because he hated going back home. So it was kind of like, it was kind of a weird child growing up in that sense. And then they mentioned Darlene and stuff, and when they mention her, like, you think, like, the Men in Black show up, and then it's not. It's just like, oh, I thought that was you, and he's, like, talking to a girlfriend or something. Or is he? Is he not? And then he's like, we can't see her right now and stuff. He's like, it's just too risky and everything like that. And he's like, I'll show you where I've been the whole time. And I don't know, I thought that was weird because I don't really know what he meant by that. When Mr. Robot said, I'll show you where I've been the whole time, because where they go and stuff like that, I'm kind of just like, I'm not following that in that sense. So I'm kind of like, maybe he's also referencing that he is not real. He's not his dad or something like that. But I do know what he meant when he says, I'll show you where I've been the whole time, because he's dead. He's still dead. And that was the big twist at the end of this episode. So, yeah. And then, I don't know what I wrote here. I don't know what I wrote on the side right here. And then he goes, I'll figure this out. Oh, it says to us. Like, he's talking to us, like his friend of mine. And he says, I'll figure this out. He's like, I wouldn't trust myself either and stuff like that, you know. And then he's like, I'm remembering more and more. And stuff like that. And then he's like, once I get all the answers, I'll be back to normal and stuff. And he's like, my dead father isn't dead though. And he's kind of like, he's sitting across from me. And then he looks back and there's like a Men in Black guy reading the newspaper and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a weird scene in that sense. And I actually found what I was looking for because Mr. Robot tweeted it. And this is also where I was talking about. He says, maybe it was the morphine, maybe it was F Society. He's like, I think I heard somewhere that extreme stress can cause psychogenic amnesia. He's like, what's more stressful than starting a revolution? He's like, look, calm down, I'll figure this out. It's like, I know you don't trust me, but I wouldn't either. But I'm telling you, I'm remembering more and more now as time goes on. That's a plus. It's all starting to come back. And once we get all the answers, I'll be back to normal, except for the fact that my dead father isn't really dead and is sitting across from me. And Mr. Robot said, even when memories return, we never have all the answers. There is always something new to worry about. And I guess what to worry about is the fact that he just doesn't know. Nothing is really making sense to Elliot in this way and stuff like that. So it's just, it's odd, you know? It's that nothing makes sense, but at the same time, I guess in time, it will make sense or whatever. Or hopefully it will, because, you know, with Elliot, you know, the morphine and, like, the social anxiety and stuff like that, his mental illness, like, you just never know what you're gonna get with Elliot. And stuff like that. So, it's just, I guess, one big, like, hanging on for dear life for Elliot and stuff like that. So, it's just, you gotta see where this plays out. Sorry, my butt hurts. I have to put, like, a pillow on this thing so I could sit on it. But then we go to Tyrell and his how at a hospital, and the baby boy was delivered and stuff like that. And then it's kind of odd because I guess there's a revelation here or something, or just, I guess, a painful memory in a way and stuff like that. And what Mr. Robot tweeted here was, power and influence fade to desperation when those closest to us discover our darkest secret. And I guess this is a dark secret. And then also I referenced Lana Del Rey's Pretty When You Cry and The Other Woman, 2 songs off of Ultraviolence, by saying, Tyrell's wife is pretty when she cries because being a mistress on the side might not appeal to fools like you. In that sense, saying, like, she's kind of like this S&M kind of girl and stuff like that, but then it's like she does have, like, a sad, I guess, depressing in life, in a way, because of the way Tyrell treats her and stuff like that. And I also said that Tyrell is kind of a hard man to love for her in that sense, and his wife is kind of a hard woman to keep track of in a way. And Tyrell, like, likes to rage and everything like that, and I bet you sometimes she's kind of like, don't do that and stuff, and he wants his way and everything like that. And we've seen that, like, how crazy Tyrell is and everything like that, so it's really kind of plays hand in hand, like, the context of the show with some songs that I can kind of figure out, stuff like that. And she says, like, her little revelation, that she didn't know it was possible to love anyone again, and it reminded her of her. When she said her, I was kind of like, her, you know, it was like some lesbian relationship, because you never know with the show. But when Tyrell asked who, she was like, oh, I was 15 at the time, and she's like, there's so much paperwork that I had to do, and, like, so much signatures and stuff like that, like, it was just, like, a bunch of filing and whatever and stuff. And then she kind of, like, uses the metaphor, like, she was like, you would think I was signing up for a mobile plan, you know, like, a contract for phone service and stuff. And then I was kind of thinking, I was like, ooh, like, contracts have a cutoff date, or, like, they end, or they can cut you off, or whatever, you know, sometimes. And then she's like, the parents seem nice, and she's like, at the time, and she's like, I hope they'd stay nice and stuff. So this is where I thought, I was like, ooh, maybe she gave her baby up for adoption, or whatever, because I was thinking abortion at first, but then I was like, no, I'm pretty sure it's adoption. And then she's kind of like just going on about it, and Tyrell says, why didn't you tell me? And she says, I didn't tell anybody who didn't need to know, you know. And then she's kind of like, I tried to erase it, and it was cruel. And she's like, I can't forget, and I can't forgive myself. And then Tyrell says, you should have told me. And she's like, don't touch me. And then she's like, you're not a man I want to be married to any longer. And then Tyrell tells her they're still away. And then she's like, though, you know, I've been a little bit careless and stuff and everything like that, because, I mean, he strangled that one girl and everything like that. And then she says, understand this. She's like, if you want to remain in this family, she's like, fix this. But then it's always kind of like, with Tyrell, it's always about him. He's kind of self-centered in that sense, because when that one episode where he did the hookup with that one guy, Tyrell was like, I'm doing it for us, and by us I mean I, and stuff. So it was kind of like, And then kind of made me think of like Maleficent and the wings and how she turned evil, and like maybe this was his mistress's wings, like they say, like the kid that she had to give up for adoption, and like they were taken from her, and then she turned evil because behind every evil man is an evil woman, and stuff like that. So I was just thinking that like little reference in my mind. So I don't know, what do you guys think about that? And then we go to Blank Disc, and Gideon's kind of like, I know the owner, because the cops are like, no, like we're not letting anyone in here and stuff like that. And it was like burned down or something. It was like an electrical fire. And then he's like, I came to pick up drives that an employee of mine dropped off, it being Elliot meeting with White Rose and everything like that. And they're just like, oh, there's like nothing like survived the fire, I guess, like they would say, and everything. They're like, everything's gone. And I was like, was this like a planned meeting? You know, like they said, how Angela's boyfriend said you have to go there at 2, like no later and stuff like that and everything. And I was just thinking, I was like, maybe they like planned the time because they were kind of like how Elliot was going to mess with the AC in the sense to make everything hot and catch on fire. I'm like, maybe they did that to Blank Disc, you know, like they started that electrical fire. It was all planned. That's why they had to get there at a certain time and have the meetings and stuff. So I don't know, but that was that scene. And then Tyrell goes back to his office, and then there is the old man from the hookup episode, I think, the one who kind of told him like, oh, in 2 weeks, like we'll schedule like another like meeting and stuff. And it's like, oh, did you have a boy and stuff? He's like, oh yeah and stuff. And he's like, okay, I'll get right to it and everything like that. And I was like, ooh. And then he mentions Sharon, the person who Tyrell strangled. It's like, the police indicated that you were of interest and you had advances on Sharon and stuff. And he's like, I doubt it's you and everything like that. It's like, but the problem is still you know, like I guess his presence there and everything like that. And he basically tells him, you're fired. And I thought this was kind of karma for the way he fired those other people last time. And then he's like, I'm not sure what you mean. And then he's kind of like, you know exactly what I mean. And then he's like, you can't do this and stuff like that. He's like yelling. And then he even tells him, like, I was curious of your reaction. This kind of makes me think, like, do most people see, like, Tyrell's kind of a little bit, like, of a crazy person and stuff like that? And then he's like, but I'm disappointed. And then he's kind of like, please, no, like, don't fire me. Like, I worked my ass off for this company and stuff like that. Like, I'm the person that you promoted so fast. And then this kind of reminded me of Vera, because he tells him, like, something led you to this point. He's like, right now, he's like, I want you to find it and understand it. He's like, that's the only way to reconcile and everything like that with yourself. And then Tyrell's begging him, like, please don't let me go and stuff like that. And it's kind of like, bye, Felicia, because he kind of just walks out of the room. And then as Tyrell's walking out, the detectives or the police are kind of like, oh, you can't keep running away. And then he's kind of like, it's like, if you have anything, he's like, contact my lawyers. It's like, if you found any evidence against me, he's like, charge me, which is kind of an odd statement, because I guess it's like, he kind of gave himself away. When he yelled at that guy, they said, accomplishments do not excuse our mistakes. So I was just like, huh. So that was just weird in that sense. So, hold on. We go to Mr. Robot and Elliot in their, like, childhood home or the room or whatever of Elliot. And then he's like, oh, the people will be here soon because it's not their house anymore, obviously. And then he kind of like, oh, the window. He's like, you remember that, Dad, basically. And then he breaks the window with Mr. Robot. And then he kind of says, like, remember how you pushed me out and stuff like that? And you pushed me at the boardwalk and everything like that? And then he's like, you thought I deserved it. And then he's kind of like, yes. He's like, you thought you deserved it. And so, like, I guess kind of like trying to turn the tables back on Elliot, making him not push him out the window. In that sense, he's like, you thought you felt guilty after telling about the leukemia and stuff like that. And then he mentions, like, the secret, and I was kind of thinking, I was like, that's kind of referencing like Tyrell's meeting when there was stuff. So I was like, don't really know what that secret is. And then he's like, don't be angry at yourself. He's like, let it go. And then it's funny because Elliot's like, yeah, I was angry and stuff. Maybe I should let it go. And he kind of throws Mr. Robot out the window. And I kind of thought that was like when I asked Rami Malek. You can watch that Periscope Q&A on my channel. I still have it. And it's kind of when he told him, like, when I asked on Periscope, is Elliot delusional? And Rami Malek kind of didn't have an answer for it. And I was kind of thinking, like, because then Mr. Robot tweeted something about delusion. Let's get to it, because I was kind of like, is Elliot becoming his father, or so it seems? Because I was kind of thinking, I'm like, maybe it's not real or something, you know? And they say our demons always get back up after they fall. Pushing problems away does nothing to eliminate them. So, you know, I was kind of like, And then I also tweeted some lyrics from Ultraviolence by Lana Del Rey, because it said, Elliot was filled with poison, referencing the morphine. And I said, but he was blessed with beauty and rage. And in that sense, I meant, like, the beauty of, like, the innocence of a child, but the rage when he grew up that, like, he never understood and stuff like that, and he was mad. And then I said, but when Mr. Robot hit him, or basically pushed him out the window, kind of felt like a kiss, and it kind of reminded him of when he was a kid, because it's like, he still loved his dad, but it always brings him back to his childhood. So it's just an abusive relationship. I mean, they're all just one big happy family, aren't they? So, I don't know, I was just thinking of that, and I was just like, okay, and stuff. And then you go to Angela on her laptop, and she's looking up Colby and everything like that. And then her dad is kind of like, oh, it'd be nice if you helped in the garden, because I'm going to be out there. And then he's like, oh, I didn't know Darlene was in here or whatever and stuff like that, or like in town. And then that's when she's kind of like, what, Darlene, where? Because, you know, she kind of told Darlene, like, don't ask for my help. And she kind of, I guess, ditched her at the museum and stuff like that. But what ifs? So, because she goes to look for her in a way. And then Gideon's on the phone, and then he's talking about the notification of the honeypot being removed and the server and everything. He's like, I never did that. Like, our system is compromised, so obviously I didn't do it and everything like that. And he's like, you need to put it back, like, as a honeypot and stuff. He's like, I have the thing here, like, the person on the phone. He's like, you authorized it, and Tyrell says, like, it's gonna stay and everything, blah, blah, blah. And Gideon's like, because he just had that, like, failure talk with his boyfriend, so I guess he's like, well, now I really am a failure, because, like, the honeypot's offline, and, like, something's gonna happen and everything like that. And then Angela's at home, at the home of Mr. Robot and everything like that. And I thought she was gonna get stabbed or something, because the way they're, like, creeping up on Angela, I was like, oh shit, someone's gonna pop up on her. But no, and then Darlene pops up, and she's like, oh, I thought, like, Elliot would be here and stuff, you know, whatever, like, the last place on Earth, like, I'd check and stuff. And then Angela mentions how there's a weird family that lives there and stuff, and then, like, the dad is weird and stuff, and then, like, the weird dad, I guess, arrives home, like they say, you know, kind of talking about him. And then they go out and they hide in the backyard or something, or by the side of the house, and then she's like, I should have been more open and stuff, like, sorry and everything like that. And then when they're kind of walking after they kind of, like, make up for a while, they notice the broken glass from the window and stuff like that, and they look up and like, oh, isn't that, like, Elliot's old room and stuff like that? So they're kind of like, and then this is kind of a part that comes back in the cemetery that I was like, Mr. Robot's still not real. Why is the window broken? Like, did Elliot just rage? Like, blessed with beauty and rage? Like, when he goes there, like, it kind of just floods back to him and stuff. Or I said, did he throw himself out the window again? You know, like, I was thinking just to myself, I'm like, I guess follow your steps back to find your way. I was thinking, like, maybe he jumped out the window so he could remember, you know. I'm like, you never know. You never know. And then they're just weird, and Mr. Robot and Elliot are, like, limping to the cemetery, and then Darlene and Angela show up and stuff like that. And then he's like, oh, I tried to... When he says... Mr. Robot says this, I wasn't sure who he was talking from, who he was talking to, or anything like that, but I was very confused on this part when he says... Because he's talking to Elliot, and he says, I tried to protect your son, but they caught up to us. And I was thinking, like, who is he talking to? You know, and I guess the only person I can think of was Elliot's mother, because Elliot's mother is still alive, but then I'm just like, who could he be talking to in the cemetery? Because it was just Elliot, Angela, and Darlene. Or so it could seem, you know, maybe in the next episode we'll see, like, someone that's hiding out in the cemetery, maybe in season 2. You never know. And then he's like, there are things he's like, things are too accelerated right now, you know, because it's like near the end of the revolution. He's like, but no matter. He's like, again, he's like, I'll never leave you. He's like, they're gonna try to get rid of me. He's like, don't let them. He's like, I'll never leave you alone again, and stuff. And then he kind of like crumbles on the tombstone because he fell out the stuff like that. I mean, he fell out the window and everything like that. And then he tells Angela and Darlene, like, what is he talking about and stuff like that. And then he's like, I want to know. And then they both look confused, or like, who? And stuff. And then when he looks, you notice it's his dad's tombstone. So, or Mr. Robot just is his tombstone. So either Mr. Robot runs really fast, or Elliot is crazy, Elliot is delusional, Elliot is just breaking down or something like that. Maybe his handlers are Darlene and Angela in a way, because they're the only ones helping him and getting him back on like meds or whatever in a way. It's just one big whoa. And then they're like, you're bleeding, and that's when I thought, again, I was like, did he jump out the window? Because he's the one who's hurt in a way. Maybe he was the one limping to the cemetery, because he's kind of like, and like, I'm going crazy and stuff. And then he's like, this can't be happening. He's like, it is, isn't it? Because he's talking to us now. And he's like, you knew all along, didn't you? And I kind of did in a way, because I was like, I don't know, Mr. Robot's like real and stuff, because they're like, Mr. Robot isn't real, but then he is real, but then he's not. So it's kind of like, oh, like you don't know. And then they're like, who do you think you've been talking to? And then he tells us in his mind, he's like, you're gonna make me say it. You know, he's like, I'm Mr. Robot. And I was like, that makes sense, because when he looked in the mirror before he broke it, he was Mr. Robot, he was Darlene, he was Angela. And then at the end of this episode, it kind of like, he's not. So I was confused by that and stuff like that. But then I hypothesized, I was like, so Mr. Robot is Elliot. I'm like, the voice in his head is his dad's. So I'm just like, this is still weird. And then one thing from Lady Gaga's Marry the Night music video, if you guys watch that music video, the intro at least, you'll kind of find some similarity in here. Because of, like, I guess him being pushed out a window as a child and stuff like that, blah, 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 and his mom being very, like, abusive with him. And Lady Gaga mentions that trauma is the ultimate killer, because memories are not recycled like atoms and particles in quantum physics. They can be lost forever. And that's kind of true in this sense, because Elliot's like, he doesn't remember anything. He couldn't remember his own sister. He couldn't remember who his own father was and stuff. Like, it was only like him and his mom growing up, like, as we saw. But then now it's kind of like a whole family affair, and like everybody knows each other, like growing up. They weren't just like, I guess, casual co-workers and stuff like that. Like, they actually have a history together. So I was kind of like, oh my god. I was like, this kind of makes sense and stuff like that. Like, if you watch Lady Gaga's Marry the Night music video and stuff like that, because I guess it was just, whatever happened was really painful, that part of their mind just like erased that or tries to hide that or something like that. And I was like, I can't handle this. And then the next scene, Mr. Robot said, we struggle to connect, to understand, but that doesn't mean we don't care. It means we're human. And I said, maybe that's why he has this social anxiety problem, you know, like how he takes morphine and stuff like that. And then I said, referencing Lady Gaga's video, I said, I don't think it's because he's been dishonest with himself or with the world or with Angela or with Darlene or his life. It's like, maybe he loathes reality in the sense of, because even in Lady Gaga's Marry the Night music video, they call her Morphine Princess. And that's why I keep saying, look up music, because it kind of goes hand in hand with the show. Because morphine numbs, and in one of the previous episodes, Elliot was like, life is so much better when you're numb and stuff like that. So I was kind of just like, oh my god, I'm like, this is kind of making more sense if you like pay attention with lyrics and music videos and you kind of put it into context of what they're saying and stuff like that. So it's just like, okay, but is at the train station that he was with Mr. Robot at the beginning of this episode with Angela and Darlene. And then she's kind of like, you're gonna be okay. And then he's like, okay, far from, you know, like, I'm far from okay, Angela, like, and like, look at what I've been doing and stuff like that. Like, I've been having a mental breakdown. And then she kind of says something which is a bit odd, because she's like, I envy you. And then she's like, I wish I could talk to my mom, which is like, real or not, you know, because it's kind of like, he was talking to his dad, he was interacting with his dad, he was going on a trip with his dad to the city, he was so excited as a child. But Angela obviously is not going to be able to like talk to her mom again because she's dead and stuff like that. And then she's like, just take care and stuff, and she hugs him and she leaves and everything like that, which is weird. But then I realized, oh, she lives in the city, and Darlene and Elliot kind of don't. They live like away. That's why they go to the train station. Or maybe she lives outside of the city. I think she lives in the suburbs. And then Darlene's kind of like, I know you don't want me talking about it. And he's like, you're right, I don't want to talk about it. But then she says, I need to know, like, do you remember when we first started F Society? And I was kind of like, wait. I was like, okay, this kind of makes sense because reminds me of when he was talking to Mr. Robot at F Society, at the little arcade. And when he was walking out, Elliot, and then she's like, you're just going to leave like that and stuff like that. And she says, no matter how much you don't want to, you're still a part of this. And I was like, huh, that's kind of weird to say, you know, because it's kind of like she knows him, but not really, because he would even be like, how do you know where I live? And like, you just showed up in my shower and stuff like that. Like, pieces started coming together in that sense. And I was kind of just like thrown off by it, because I was like, when we started F Society, I was like, that's why she, I guess, found it so personal when he just walked out that one time and stuff like that. And then it kind of cuts back to Gideon looking for Tyrell and stuff. And they're like, oh no, like he was let go, you know, like, and he's like, can I talk to Scott Knowles, which is the husband of the wife that Tyrell strangled. And then I was like, no, like, you haven't heard and stuff like that. And then Colby is at Angela's house, which is very odd. And it's odd because obviously she showed up at his house, and then she showed up again, and that's when they had their little, like, I guess, debate, if that's what you want to call it. And then the dad's kind of like, I'll leave, like, I'll let you two talk it out, and stuff like that. And then, like how I said, Colby says, I'd pop in, like, you know, like, you kind of popped in at my house, and stuff like that. And he's like, there's an offer, and then she's like, not about the case, or whatever. And then he's like, no, like, I have lawyers, like, I don't even understand the case, and stuff like that. Typical one-percenter. And he tells her that you got what you wanted. He's like, but it was wrong to want that. And I was kind of like, what does she want? Like the money? I was like, pride, prejudice. I was like, what is Angela really after? Like, what are people's intentions in this show? And then it's like, why do you care and stuff? And then it's like, you're relentless and smart. It's like, you're valuable to people I know, like important people. And I was kind of thinking, I was like, oh, he's referencing other one-percenters, like how Tyrell brought in Elliot at the beginning of the season, well, at the end of the first episode, which is the season premiere, and they brought him in. He was there with all those like one-percenter people, and then he kind of like just had Elliot, I guess, decide whether he'd work for Tyrell or not, and then like, maybe that's why they had the meetings, and why Tyrell kind of pops up again at the end of this episode, and why Tyrell's a part of this story, part of this little web that comes back to Elliot and stuff like that. And then he's like, there's a gig, and then she's like, where? And then he's like, at a place you love, which is referencing Evil Corp. And then she's like, what's the real ask? And then he's like, I'm prepared for this, because when they were talking about the leaks and everything like that, like before the leukemia, like they kind of knew that there was going to be some kind of like backlash or time that it'll all surface in a way. And he's like, they prepared this rainy day fund for this day, you know, and stuff, like just in case. And then it's like the money like 4 or 5 times double what they're going to be asking for, because I think they said like 750 million. I could be wrong. And he's like, we'll be happy to sign off for that, because like there's so much money in there. And he's like, but after we exhaust like your lawyers like funds and stuff like that, you know, and stuff like that. That's why I guess Angela said the money wouldn't come in for years, because they're gonna fight it, but not really. But then Angela's kind of like, why would you offer me a job at a place that you're testifying against, like that we're suing and everything like that? It's like, because we think you'd make a great businesswoman and stuff like that. And then she's like, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave, kind of like the way he kind of asked her to leave. And then he's like, you killed my mom and everything like that, in a way, like Evil Corp. And then he's like, everyone destroys the planet. It's like, are you gonna make it personal? Because he's like, fast food delivers diabetes to your door. And then I think he mentioned something about cigarettes and lung cancer, which is what led me to believe, like, when Mr. Robot coughed, I was like, is that leukemia? Or were those his cigarettes Mr. Robot was smoking? You know, I was just like, oh, when I was thinking. And then he's like, if you want change, you gotta change from within. He's like, and these people aren't gonna wait, so you gotta have an answer by tomorrow. And then Mr. Robot even tweeted, like, changing the world, changing ourselves. Change is always difficult when we can't respect the people in our way. So I was still a little bit confused on that. I was like, maybe Colby, in a way. And this is where I thought, like I said, how this perfectly mirrors our society, and how Elliot was kind of mirroring his own father in that sense, kind of like becoming his father in a way, or so to say, because his dad was still dead and he was talking to a ghost the whole time. Maybe Elliot's like the ghost whisperer, you know? And then I said that this show is kind of based on real events in our lives, but it's just seen through Sam Esmail's creative lens, you know, like he's kind of exposing the world and the one percenters and low key, like trying to get people noticed and awake, get people into the show, but then he kind of throws in the story of Elliot being like on morphine and stuff like that, I guess, for like the X factor of this show. But that is the creative lens of Sam Esmail, you know, like we're seeing the real events in our lives on TV. They're just dramatized or fantasized, and it's creatively through that creative outlet that Sam Esmail made. So I was just like, this is beyond me. I was like, this is perfect. Like the titles and stuff, if you pay attention to the titles of each episode, what happens in the episode, the context of the episode, the context of the dialogue, and you can kind of lend to the songs that I've been talking about in most of these recaps, and maybe, just maybe, Mr. Robot will make more sense for you, and even more so as I talk about it and recap these episodes. Then we get to Darlene and Elliot back at his apartment and stuff like that, and then she kind of like looks in his drawers, and then she's like, so you just fill up your prescription meds and then dump them out and stuff like that. And then that's another thing, like the handlers and the mind control thing, and like maybe they're trying to like just control him by making him take his meds, and then I guess him rebelling is like him not taking his meds and going on the morphine, but then that did more damage than good, so it's odd. And then she's like, where are your new prescriptions and stuff? He's like, why? It doesn't matter, like I don't even know what's real anymore, because he's having that like mental breakdown or whatever, like coming back to reality, and it's just too much for him in that sense. And then I was kind of like thinking, I was just like, once he takes the meds, I'm like, is that gonna ruin everything? Is that gonna like make Mr. Robot disappear? Is that what Mr. Robot was talking about when he said like, don't let them take me away, like don't let them like kill me, basically? And I guess like symbolically killing him in the sense of like when he takes those medications, will like imaginary friend us or Mr. Robot, his dad, the memory of him, be dead, be wiped away or something? I'm like, you can never tell with this series in a way. But I was like, maybe that's why, like, low-key he was dumping his meds out and stuff like that, but you never know. You never know. And then they're like, maybe we should stop and execute it and stuff, and then Darlene's like, why? Like, once the infected server is back on the main thing, I forgot what I wrote here. She's like, we're set. And then Elliot says, like, it wasn't me doing this the whole time. And then she's like, yes, but the reasons to do so were real and stuff like that. It's like, this was all your idea. You came up with this, like, you know, like, deep down it's the right thing to do and stuff like that. And then she's like, I'm gonna go get your med and stuff, and we'll talk when I'm back and everything like that. And that's when I was thinking, again, mind control. Like, is she gonna go, like, slowly, like, I guess, give him meds to, like, make Elliot do it? Because maybe they knew Elliot was smarter than them, and by getting him on his medications, they can make him do things that they want and stuff like that. But once again, you never know. And then that's when I asked, what would you do if you were in my shoes? And he's like, I know. He's like, I'm officially crazy, but the plan isn't, is it? And stuff like that. And I was just like, oh, I was like, that makes sense, because it's kind of like he's lost, but he's not. And then I said, Tyrell is such a snake, because once she leaves, Tyrell walks back in. And he was like, oh, I was waiting for Darlene to leave and stuff like that. And he's like, I know you're behind all of it. You know, F Society, the server, Colby, and all safe. And he's like, you're the one constant in a sea of variables and everything like that. And then he locks the door, which is kind of like, well, I was like, what is he going to do to Elliot right now? And then he takes off his suit, and then he puts on gloves on. And I was just like, oh, I was like, this is what he did when he beat up that homeless person and stuff like that. So I was just like, no. And then Mr. Robot tweets that carrying the weight of our biggest security flaw alone is too big of a burden to bear. You confide in the most unlikely of people. And that's when I was like, is Elliot Tyrell? Like, maybe Tyrell's... Or maybe Elliot is a figure of Tyrell's imagination, something he wants to be or something like that. You never know. And they also said that reality is defined by perspective. By what we choose to believe in, what we choose to accept, even delusions have consequences. Once again, leading back to the Periscope Q&A when I asked Rami Malek, is Elliot delusional? I was like, it's weird and stuff like that, but I was like, I don't know. I was like, I feel like Elliot's delusional, Elliot's crazy or something, and they just put him on meds and they control him, but you never know. getting back to it. And he's like, I don't know what your grand plan is. And remember how Tyrell mentioned to his wife, is like, we were looking up above, like there's something greater than like whatever and stuff like that. And then he kind of mentioned Elliot before that. And then he tells him, like, I don't know what your grand plan is. I was like, this isn't just chance and stuff like that. And then he's like, I need you. He's like, I need to know. It's like, you'll tell me. And then I was like, is he gonna beat him up or something? Because, he put on the gloves and he took off his, like, suit. And I was just like, he was gonna beat the shit out of Elliot. But who knows if he will. And then I was thinking again, I was like, is Tyrell his dad? In the sense of, was Elliot talking to Tyrell at the boardwalk? Because he said, I want to know about your dad. And he's like, no, you're not going to get in my mind and stuff like that. And then they have that secret meeting, Mr. Robot and Tyrell. But then Tyrell wasn't talking to Mr. Robot because Elliot just said, I am Mr. Robot. So I'm just thinking, I'm like, okay, Mr. Robot has a dirty secret. But then Mr. Robot tells Elliot at the cemetery, like, our secret. I was just like, what? Like, it kind of doesn't make sense in a way. But I was like, is Tyrell Elliot's dad at the boardwalk? Figuratively speaking. I was like, was he talking to Tyrell and not his dad? Because Tyrell pushed Elliot off, maybe, and then Tyrell's gonna beat him up again, maybe. I mean, you don't know sometimes. So I'm just thinking, but leave your thoughts down below. Stuff like that. And then he mentions, like, the strangling and everything. He's like, it's a strange sensation, it's both tremendous and simple, and he's like, you and absolute power is what's left at the end, because, like, it's like the first 10 seconds are uncomfortable and everything like that. He's like, but then, like, your body tenses up and then, like, the person dies, basically, because they're suffocated. And then he's like, that moment stayed with me. He's like, I thought I'd feel guilty. He's like, but I feel wonder. And I was just like, well, that's odd. Because it's just like, you just killed someone, Tyrell, and it seems like you're kind of going a little bit crazy, but then Tyrell's going crazy. Elliot's been going crazy, I guess. And it's just, it's odd, for Tyrell to say something like that, because it seems like he's going through something, and that also leads back to, like, the stress, amnesia, and stuff like that. And I was thinking, I was like, is this like some kind of Big Brother, that George Orwell book, I want to say 1984, and stuff like that? Like, is this some kind of Illuminati thing that people are watching over Elliot, or whatever? And then they go to the F Society arcade and stuff like that, and then Tyrell's kind of like, how long has this been going on and stuff? And Elliot's kind of like, oh, like, I don't know, and everything like that. And then he's like, I've been encrypting all the financial files and stuff. He's like, it's going to be impossible to access, and it's going to self-delete and stuff like that. And he's like, what about the backups and stuff? Tyrell asks him. And then Elliot's like, they're all taken care of. He's like, still mounting all of it. He's like, I was in all of the networks and everything like that. And then when he says, who is involved? And Elliot answers, just me. I was kind of like, maybe Elliot does have like a split personality disorder. Maybe like the Jack Black, the Bill Cosby, Mr. Robot, Darlene, and Angela, and whatever. I'm like, maybe they're not real. I'm like, maybe it's just Elliot, and he was traumatized so much as a child that he just came up with a bunch of people, a bunch of realities. He fell down the rabbit hole to kind of escape reality, or he lives halfway between reality and fantasy and stuff like that. I'm like, maybe these are people he's come across in his life, and he just made them real in his mind to kind of just talk to someone in a way. But don't know, but that's why I keep saying, like, look at Lady Gaga's Marry the Night music video and relate that intro to this. And Tyrell responds with, now it's you and me. And he's like, I've always been told that we'd end up working together. And then he's like, I have to know, why'd you do it? He's like, what you'd hope to accomplish? And then Elliot's kind of like, I don't know. He's like, I wanted to save the world. When he looks at the popcorn machine, I thought it was a little bit odd, because remember Darlene put the gun in the popcorn, and I was like, well, it seems like most of the popcorn is gun, so where's the gun? Stuff like that. And then the popcorn just goes off and the episode ends, and the next episode seems like it's going to be like the revolutionary finale, like I said at the beginning of this episode, because it looks like there's a lot of like anarchy going on and like change and power and stuff like that. But I'm just like, what is going on? Like this episode kind of made a little bit more questions and stuff than answers, but I hope I kind of answered some of your questions if you had any. But that's when I was also like, split personality disorder, because it's just Elliot. And then I was like, I've been told we would work together and stuff. I'm like, is he just playing with him, or is this like some kind of like Illuminati Big Brother kind of thing that they placed Elliot and Tyrell together? I was like, maybe, like I say, they're invisible hands that run the world, but I'm just like, it's odd, But like I said, look up those Lana Del Rey songs, look up the Lady Gaga Marry the Night music video and put into context that into like the dialogue of this episode and what happened in this episode, and maybe you can relate some things together and find more answers. But this web just comes back to Elliot, like I've been saying, and everything like that. And once again, shout out to Senseless Eater, happy belated birthday to Christian Slater. And once again, next week's recap, as well as this one, is going to be on delay, but next week's recap is going to be on a really big delay, only because I'm going to be watching the season finale at the theater in Austin, Texas. And obviously I won't be able to like take notes on it like when I'm there in the theater, you know, and be talking to myself and stuff like that. So next week's recap, the season finale, is going to be late, but I will be watching the season finale in theaters. Hopefully it can be the cast or something, you know, just something. Lord, I don't ask for much. And I don't know, but I don't know what I'm going to do when Mr. Robot ends, because this show is my life. I still need to get a shirt of who is Mr. Robot. I still haven't gotten one. The season finale is already going to happen. Such a fan, aren't I? But I've been telling Sam Esmail, like Terry Goldman of USA, the social media person and everything, and I've even tweeted Carly Chicken and Portia Doubleday and Elliot VR and stuff like that. And just like, Sam Esmail really created something. And like I said, low-key, I feel like those actors and actresses are mirroring the characters they play in the show, because I kind of feel like they are their characters. And like I said, the show is the truth and the light. And it's just, like I said, seen through Sam Esmail's creative lens and stuff like that. But I don't know, the season finale seems like it's going to be good, and I think it's an hour and a half. I think that's what it said when I looked up like the season finale thingy that I'm going to be watching in theaters. I think they said it's an hour and a half episode, because I know they're going to show this episode before they show this one, so it's going to be like 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 45 minutes of just sitting there like, I mean, like, but I'm excited. I'm also kind of disappointed that I won't be able to recap it that same night, but oh well, you know, foul is fair and fair is foul, or whatever. But like I said, shout out to Senseless Eater and Christian Slater, happy birthday. And just know that next week's recap is going to be on delay, and hopefully we can get some more answers than questions, but I know we're always going to have questions and theories, because this first season is just pew, and stuff like that, but I know season 2 is going to be good, and I don't know, but Sam Esmail is good, and I don't know, I wish I could like meet them and stuff and like actually like gush over them and stuff like that, but I'll keep it simple and sweet. Eggs is out, like they say. And until next time, I want to say hi to Rami Malek. Stay safe and God bless. And yeah, so hi to my bae, Rami Malek.